Let's give you the markets update now. The JSE facing weaker global markets today and could extend losses as investors worry about the threat of rising global inflation. Now, this very view may well have contributed to the JSE having its worst day in almost 2 months yesterday. Andile Buthelezi is equity analyst at Sentio Capital, and he joins us for a look at the latest market developments. Shenge, a very good morning to you. So the JSE experiencing its worst day yesterday in almost 2 months. Give us a sense of how the markets have opened today.
Good morning to you. Yeah, look, wasn't a great day yesterday. A little bit better today, this morning, at least at the open. A few of the stocks opening up about 5%. Northern Muscle up about 5% this morning, giving a little bit of that back. Nasdaq is also up about 5% a little bit this morning, giving a little bit of that back as well. But look, overall, I think even though yesterday was a bad day, the worst in 2 months that we've had, I always try to remind everyone that context does matter. And if we contextualize yesterday's moves, we will be averse to not remember that yesterday's moves come off the back of 6 consecutive months of positive returns on the JSE. That is the longest winning streak since about 2014. If you look at the year-to-date number, for instance, the all shares up about 12%. On a one-year basis, we're up about 35%. So I think in that environment, it doesn't come as a surprise when you get investors choosing to take a little bit of profits off the table every now and again.
Sure. Let's talk about the rand. It is recovering from the initial blow it was dealt when the COVID-19 hit in 2020. Now, with the local unit, it's gaining about 30% against the dollar since the height of the pandemic. Is this really sustainable? I guess that's the question among some.
Always a difficult one to answer that one when it's based on the rand, but it's nice to be talking about the rand in a positive light after last year specifically, where it was quite bad. Look, is it sustainable? It's always difficult to give a point forecast for the rand. I think even if you use conventional economic models to calculate fair value, historically you will find that the rand actually tends to not trade at fair value for too long. When you look at how it's traded over the last few years, for instance. So I think more than trying to forecast a certain point at which the rand should trade, I think direction is more important. And for me, I've always maintained the view that directionally speaking, in a risk on 2021 versus a risk off 2020, on average through the year, the rand is likely to be stronger than it was in 2020.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have commodity prices at such elevated levels bodes well to help just underpin some of the strength that we're seeing in the rand. So can it get back to 15 rand in the short term? Sure. But on average through the year, it's likely to be stronger this year than it was last year. So it's all good.
Yeah, let's talk commodities. Some analysts arguing that high commodity prices have reinforced the view that inflation is a concern. Take us through those latest market moves, particularly on the commodities side.
Yeah, and I guess the biggest concern is the fact that most commodities are used as inputs into the production of other goods. So if commodity prices are high, then the producers of the goods that use the commodities will probably pass through those price increases to their end users. So then the price of goods get higher, which is inflationary. So yeah, like you said, commodity prices have been quite elevated of late. If you look at copper prices, for instance, we're sitting at around $10,500 per ton, highest we've seen in a while. If you look at oil prices at $68 per barrel, a little bit of the recent short-term movement was because of that cyber attack that we've seen in the US that has blocked that pipeline, of course. So we are expecting that pipeline, or at least the guys that own the pipeline have said that they expect to potentially resume operations by the end of the week. So that remains to be seen. But oil prices at $68 per barrel. Platinum prices at $1,200 per ounce. Palladium prices also just under $3,000. And iron ore prices touching at 20.
Yeah.
Commodity prices in general are quite high, which is from an inflation perspective. But I mean, us as a commodity producing nation that exports to all of these countries, I think it's good for us.
Sure. Let's talk company news. Taxi Financier, that's Sentio Capital, releasing its results for the 6 months ending in March. Take us through the group's finances, or should we say numbers, which was expecting, by the way, an up to 60% rise in headline earnings.
Yeah, and if you look at the actual number that came in, just looking at the headline earnings per share number here, it's up about 44%. If you look at the core number that they quote, they're quoting about 56%, so just under that 60% mark that they were talking about. Look, it doesn't look bad on an overall basis. I think the board confident enough in the prospect of a company to pay out a dividend, which is always good. Shareholders always like that. I think the one other key thing that came out of this particular report was the fact that they're looking to increase their stake in We Buy Cars. So they're looking to take that stake up to about 74%. I think it's a decent transaction for them to be entering into. So let's see how that plays out for them.
Yeah. All right. Finally, let's talk another company. SAB Zenzele Kabili has now announced that it's going to list on the JSE, releasing that listing date. The Black Empowerment Scheme from SAB will list on the local bourse on the 28th of May. Give us more detail about this listing and who exactly can buy these shares.
Yeah, so this one comes off the back of the unwinding of the initial deal, which was Zenzele. So Zenzele Kabili is quite creative of them, of course. So yeah, details of this particular listing, like you said, listing on the 28th of May. If we look at shareholders that would have been invested in the initial BEE deal, you actually would have done well if you had invested there. So like 100 Rand invested in the initial BEE deal would be paying out around 77,500 Rand pre-tax today. So they've actually done well for their shareholders. In terms of this Zenzele Kabili deal, who can invest? Initial current Zenzele shareholders can invest, and then once it lists on the 28th, ordinary members of the public, as per the BEE Act, of course, qualifying members, I guess I should say, as per the BEE Act, can then buy and sell shares as they please. But if you're an employee of SAB and you are a holder of Zenzele Kabili, then I think you're in a lock-in period of around 5 years before you can start buying and selling. So ordinary members of the public can, or qualifying members at least, can, if they want to buy shares in this particular BEE deal via their brokers, via their JSE brokers, of course, or via their banking trading platforms.
All right, Andile Buthelezi, thank you very much for your market analysis there. He is an equity analyst at Sentio Capital.